with tonight's lesson. And I'm going to share my screen. We can start recording. So actually, I'm not going to share my screen at the moment. So we kind of jumped into React like head first. We dove into the deep end in React over the last sprint. And we're going to kind of take a step back tonight a little bit and really talk about this whole idea of what React is, why we use it. And then we're going to learn how to do something called routing in React, which routing is a major part of any web framework. First thing we're going to talk about tonight is what a SPA is. Who can tell me what a SPA is in the programming sense of the word? I need a SPA too. That'd be sweet. Let's go. A SPA is, as many of you said, something called a single page application. Okay. And without looking at Wikipedia here, in really simple terms, and I'm going to come over into our little project here. Really simple terms, who can tell me what that means? So like in the highest level, very simple, very basic terms, tell me what a single page application is. I like it. The page is interactive and doesn't refresh. Navigation is handled on the client side. Everything runs from one page, a web page that doesn't refresh. All of these are correct. Moving around without making several data requests. Now that can be a little misleading. I know where you're getting at, Aaron. But when we, yeah, that's true. But we could make data requests, but not for new HTML, just for data. But yeah, okay, cool. All of these are correct. So let me take a step back into the world of like 2006, all right? At this point, PHP is king, and PHP is still pretty huge right now. And what we used to do, and what still happens in frameworks such as Rails and Django and anything that we run with PHP, WordPress, or Laravel, or anything else, what happens is, and I'm going to start, you're going to get some of Dan's famous annotations here, is that we have a server, okay? Here's our server, beep, 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 boop, boop, server. And we have our computer. And this is 2006, so this is like a giant CRT monitor, right? And like a big old desktop tower next to it. And we make a request to the server for a website. We go to a website. We say we're going to www.google.com, okay? The server, what it's going to do is it's going to say, oh, what's the address they wanted to go to? It lives at google.com, right? And okay. And the server says, what's the address it wanted? Oh, we wanted the home page. Okay, here's all of the HTML and all of the HTML, JavaScript, CSS associated with that, what we call a route, okay? And then we say, cool, we've used all, we're like on the page, and then we say, hey, I want another page, and this page is gonna be maybe my search results. And we're gonna just say, this is /SR, search results. It's not really what it is. And then the server is gonna say, oh, cool, what is all of the data associated with that? And then it's going to send us back all of the HTML, CSS, and JavaScript associated with that route. Okay, so this is a multi-page application. What this means is that we send a request to the server every time we want to change the page we're on. Okay, there's our thick desktop. And for those of you with gaming desktops, I understand that desktops are still a thing. But this one has like a 400 gigahertz or 400 megahertz processor in it or something. Okay, so this is multi-page application. This is how PHP works, all right? This is how Ruby works in Rails, Ruby. It's how Java works, C#. All of these languages, this is how they work, okay? And this could be how Node works as well in JavaScript, but we're going to talk about something newfangled here. So for every time I change my address, so I change this address up here, I'm going to send a request to the server for some new data. Who can tell me a downside to this method? Ooh, okay. So we're going to say slow. When we say slow, where is the slowdown happening? Ooh, initial load. No, actually, the initial load is pretty fast. Always having to go back to the server. Every time we change our page, we have to ask the server for new data. The server has to send us at least an HTML file, if not a CSS and JavaScript and whatever else we need from it. So between pages, our lag is pretty long comparatively. Okay, so that's the big downside of the server side stuff here. Anyone know any upsides to multi-page applications or server side applications? SEO? Yeah, you're going to see some articles that still reference SEO, and SEO is, for those that aren't aware, SEO is search engine optimization. And you should all be aware, actually, we've gone through semantic HTML. Yeah, so it used to be that these server-side apps had better SEO, but Google and whoever else does SEO really understands how to navigate single-page applications now, so it's not as much of an issue anymore. Upsides, everything is hosted outside of the local machine. Remember, someone had asked about initial load, right? Initial load is fast, okay? We are downloading the bare minimum of what we need to show this web page on our computer, okay? We are downloading only the HTML, CSS, and JavaScript that we need to run that one page, okay? So that's a pro, and then there were some cons, right? Between pages, a little bit slower. Let's move on to our single page application. So for our single page application, and let's get rid of this. Our computer has gotten, if you're rocking the desktop, that's fine, but it's gotten a little bit thinner, a little bit faster. And I also want to say multi-page or server-side apps are still very much a thing. All right, a little bit skinnier. Oh, no more CRT monitor. We got like a flat screen. Maybe it's like curved now. Okay. So now, and I'm not saying this is how Google does it. In fact, I think Google is still rocking some server-side stuff. But just as an example, when now in 2020, and let me get rid of our server side thing here. Now when I say, hey, google.com, let me get the stuff I need. We're going to send it to the server. The server is going to say, I'm google.com. Here is all of the HTML, CSS, and JavaScript for all of the pages that you could possibly need. So we get all of it. HTML, CSS, and JavaScript in one. And there are ways to what we call chunk this. There are ways to break this up a little bit, but this is the concept, okay? I didn't even, that was unintentional, Andrew. That's pretty funny though. So we get all of it. we get all of the data we need to run through whatever google.com is got going for us. So this is what we would often call a web application, right? Where we go and download the entire application. When you go to like Twitter, you're going to download the entire application. And then what happens is on our computer, we say, hey, I want the stuff for the search results. And the server says, well, you've already got all the HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Here's just some data back. So we have just a little bit of data transferred every time we go to, if we need it, to a different route. All right. So what's the upside to a server side, or excuse me, a single page application here? Faster navigation, 100%. So between pages, it is almost instantaneous. Okay, we've already got that data. All we have to do is load it up into the browser, and that is very, very, very fast. We don't have to go ask the server for some new data anymore. Okay, single page application. So flipping between pages, you know, any kind of navigation within our app is very fast. Consolidates resources. Yeah, I would say that it could be correct. Faster response time after initial load. Yes. Speed, once again, depends on where we're talking about that speed. Requests are smaller. Yep. Less refreshing. Yeah. So on our server side app, whenever we sent a new request for some data, we would get a full refresh of our page with that new data in it. For a single page application, we only get, we don't have a refresh. That's why we use things like prevent default and things like that in our forms. So what's a downside to a single page application? Besides SEO? Larger first load. Yep. Initial load. Yep. And I think that's the big issue, right? And that's why we have things like progressive web apps and stuff now. But this initial load of all this data is going to take longer, right? So we get a slower initial load time, but once we have it, it's a much faster, seamless experience for the user. Also, this is literally going to download the entire application, okay? We're going to get every page, all the CSS, all the JavaScript, all right? And what if you only want to use one page or 2 pages, right? But it doesn't matter. You're still getting all of that data. So it's going to take longer no matter what. Whereas if you only needed one page on a server-side app, then you could just go download that one page, and that's it. Yes, Alan, single page application could have hundreds of pages of code in it, right? When should you use one over the other? Anyone know when you should use one over the other? It's kind of a trick question. There's going to be 1,000 different reasons to use one over the other. Really, yes, exactly. Like when the boss wants you to not choose one, but to use the way they've done it. When it's the right choice for the project. Yeah, if you're really concerned about initial page load, server-side application is probably better for you. If you're really concerned about a seamless experience when the users loaded your page up, then a single page application is better for you. That's why a lot of e-commerce sites, like any kind of shopping site, is a server side, because we know that the longer it takes, and we're talking milliseconds here, that it takes for a shopping site to load up, the more likely a user is to leave. Okay, so they want to capture every single user, no matter what. and we want to make it as fast as possible. So even most like Target and stuff, they're using server side with like data fetching on the other side. So you load a page up and you already have the user, and then you go and get the data. It's crazy what they can do. React, for our use case at the moment, is a single page application. Okay, there are ways to do server-side rendered React. There's a framework called Next.js, which does server-side rendered React. You can do it on your own, but for our use case right now, we are going to use it as a single page application. Any questions right now regarding the difference between server-side rendered and single page applications? You've in fact already have learned multi-page applications in Unit 1 when you created your build week project. You had to create multi-pages, right? You didn't create the server that served those, but that's essentially what it is. You create an HTML and a CSS and a JavaScript file for each page. Okay, so you've already done that. It's kind of the simplest way of doing things. Yep. Other languages do support single page applications. So you can serve and I don't want to get too deep into this, you can serve something like React or Angular or Vue from a PHP, right? So Laravel is really into using Vue. You know, a lot of people that write Ruby use React. So you can do that. That's not how it's initially set up to do though. So a lot of times when you see those kind of frameworks being used on the back end, they're using server-side rendered applications. Yep. Okay, let's move on. We got some more cool stuff to cover before we even start writing code tonight. All right, so who can think of something in React or a single page application that would be difficult to implement? Ooh, okay, I'm getting what I meant was like what part of creating it would be difficult, and this is probably a little too vague, but historically the routing part has been difficult to create, okay, in a single page application, because what happens when I go to my bar up here, let's just go to Google for the heck of it. Google. So I type in google.com, I hit enter, and let's just say that we're getting a React page here. And we can actually, let's do this. I'm going to open up my network, and I'm going to go, let's clear this. How do I clear it? Okay, I'm going to clear my network. And let's say I want to go to somewhere. I'm just going to type in React is cool. Okay, I don't even know what that is. Google does a lot of network calls, and we haven't even changed the page yet. But let's go. I'm feeling lucky. No, Google search, because lucky goes to a different site. So I'm going to hit Google search, and let's watch our network tab fill up here. All right. So now we can kind of look through here and see. Let's look for any kind of HTML. Ooh, Google might be using some sort of front-end framework. I see some JavaScript, API.js, so we might actually, yeah, I think we have a full page refresh here. Okay, and now look, now we have something new in our search bar up here. So what happens is, in a traditional sense, anytime our search bar changes, we get a refresh of the page. And so that refresh of the page, what that does is that downloads the new data, the new information coming in, and it displays it on the page. When we are using React if we get a refresh of the page, then what that's going to do is that's going to go and download all of our HTML, CSS, and JavaScript again. All right. It's going to download all of it again. And we do not want that. Yes, Google's using Angular, which they should be because they created it. That little icon is Angular. Sorry for the tangent. But when we use a single page application, we do not want a page refresh. When the page refreshes, our browser is going to go get that data. It's going to ask that server for that data again. And the server is going to comply, and it's going to re-download and reload all of that data up. Okay, so I want to show you guys a couple of things that are native to our browser that deal with the address bar up here. All right, I'm going to go console. Never mind that. That's all ad blocker stuff. So let me talk about something called window.history. Does anybody know what window.history is? And I don't want to spend a crazy amount of time on this, but it's important to understand this. Yeah, so the history is the history of this, essentially this tab, right? It's stored on a data structure called a stack. And so what that means is that if I go to a new page after this, let's check this out. We'll go to ESPN. Okay. And I have my history, okay? When I hit the back button here, what that's doing is that's saying, remove this page from the stack. And what's the last page that was on there was google.com. So I can also do history.back. Oh my gosh, stop it. Stop it. There's so much stuff that gets downloaded. Okay, history.back. Look at that. History itself is there, and this could be window.history, or we can just say history because it's on the global scope. Dot back, and goes back to our Google page. I can say it again, history.back. Goes back to that Google page. Ugh, I wish I could stop all that. But our history stores the history of our page. Okay, one thing I wanted to show you though, history.forward, or we'll look at all of the other stuff later. This causes a refresh of our page. Okay, just keep that in mind. It causes a refresh of our page. All right. That's everything that Google downloads to your browser every time you go there, no matter what. That's how they know everything about you. Yeah, it would. This is just an ad blocker. That's why you're seeing a lot of red on here. But I just want to really showcase what's happening here, okay? When we use history, it's going to refresh our page. The other thing I wanted to show you was window.location. Anyone know what .location is? I don't believe there's a new tab function in the history because that's a browser API. So our .location is actually a really cool thing. Jennifer, you're right on it. There's a little bit more to it than that. So our .location is everything that's in our address bar up here, okay? So we can look, and it gives us a lot of info, okay? We can see what the origin site is, right? It's google.com, okay? Even though there's a ton of other stuff on here, we can see what the main site is. The protocol, which is, this is gonna be HTTP or HTTPS or FTP or whatever other protocol you could use, but for most of us, it's HTTP or HTTPS. Our host, which is essentially the location of the server, the host name, gives us a port if it has one. Ooh, now we're getting into it. We have a path name. Okay, so look at this. We see that we have just the path name there. All right, and then everything after that question mark is in our search, or it's known as a query string. Okay, and so we can look at all of that. We then get the entire address with the href. All right. This is our location, is our URL bar. It's our bar up here. It tells us what's going on in here. So we can access this from our web page, and it tells us what's going on in here. And in fact, I can navigate to another site by changing what's in the URL bar. So I can say location dot location equals. Let's go. Where do I want to go? Let's go to code and .io. Oh no, why didn't it do that for me? Okay. Location, oh, there we go. Yes, it did work. Okay. Just took a minute to load it up. So I can change what's in the URL bar by using my location, okay? I want you to just understand what these two things are. It's important to understand that what they are and that they are available on any website in JavaScript, okay? They are on our window, so we can gain access to the history of this tab. We can also gain access to the location, what's in the URL bar. And that's gonna play a really important thing for us later on tonight. Any questions on those two things? Oh, this is only the tip of the iceberg. Yeah, absolutely, Vish. We can think of the location as the state of the address bar. And I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, but start to think about like, well, when would we care about what's in that address bar? Yes, location and history are on the window object. What's the window object? Does anyone remember what the window object is? Ooh, it's actually above the DOM. So the DOM is contained on the window. Yep, not the document. So window is our entire thing, the entire tab, okay, that contains all of our window methods and contains the entire DOM. It contains everything. You can check it out just by typing in window or typing in this. This will go to it. But there's our DOM. Look at that right there. The whole DOM is right there. And then we have history, location bar. Ooh. Location, navigator. We got a ton of stuff on here. What our screen width and height is, outer width and height, tons of stuff. All right, this is our window. It contains everything that we are going to use on the front end. Okay, look at this. So much stuff. You trust me, I don't know what half of this stuff is. You will find a need for a lot of this as you advance in your career, but you're never going to know what it all is. It's always the same in the fields? No, because you can put items on the window, right? So I saw some CodePen specific stuff on there, where I saw right here, look at this, CodePen data. Okay, so they've put something on the window. And you can, in your website, put something on the window. There you go, look, my user. Okay, and I don't know if there's any keys in there you shouldn't be seeing, so I'll get away from that. But that's the window, okay? And history and location are part of the window. All right, we see our history right there. Dom's mom, yes. It's the Dom's mom is the window. Okay, I want to pause right now, let you simmer, let you take a break, and we're going to come back and learn what even all of this means for us in React. So let's do a little 5-minute timer. We'll come back in 5, and we're going to plug this stuff into React. All right, see you in 5. All right, come on back and we will keep on going. So let me do something real quick in React. I'm going to create an anchor tag, and anchor tag needs an href attribute. And let me just create my anchor tag, and I want to say like Google. No, I want to do whatever. Let's just say click me. And then I'm going to say / click me. What's going to happen when I click this click me here? There's a couple of things that are going to happen. Who can tell me what one of those things is? Yeah, it's going to add click me to our location bar up here. Okay. / is always the root of your site. And I want to actually open this in a new window. And I want to do a little bit of that. Let's go to our network here. Okay. And when I click on click me, an anchor tags, what is that anchor tag's default behavior? Does anybody know what it is? Send an HTTP request. Absolutely. It sends a GET request to your server located at your URL for that new route, for that / click me. It then refreshes your page. So I'm going to go click me. And look at that. It completely downloaded all of our React stuff again, and it refreshed our page. You can see, look at the page. We could see that refresh happening. Okay. So do we want a page refresh when we are building a single page application? The answer is no. Resounding no. We do not want a page refresh. We have already downloaded all of this stuff. We don't want to download it again. Look at this. Where would I find 10.4 megs, 23.2 megs of resources downloaded. And we click it again, and it's going to re-download all of that stuff again. Okay. And that's not just Code Sandbox, it's everywhere. So the anchor tag inherently has default behavior of changing the page. So we have a library. This is a really difficult concept to deal with in React, in all single page applications. And in fact, I think that React Router is the best implementation of a single page application routing that I've ever come across. And that's what we're going to use right now. So it depends, correct, Eric, but for the most part. So we're going to use something called React Router. There we go. React Router is a library. Remember that React is lightweight and unopinionated. If you were to pick up Angular, Angular has a routing system in place already. React says, we want you to pick the router or the routing thing that works best for you. So we're not going to include that in the package here. You go out and get your own. React Router is kind of the default. There's a couple of other routers out there. But React Router is pretty much the default for us now. But what if you don't need a router? We don't have to use it, right? But we do need a router. So let's go and check it out. We can see that React Router is made for both web and native. Let's go to web. Ooh, that was a cool. They might have updated this recently. React does only want to do one thing, and then everyone doesn't want them to do more. But the cool thing is that if you need something different to happen in React, you can create a library and plug it right into React. Yes, absolutely. So what React Router is going to do is it is going to allow us to create those anchor tags. It is going to allow us to conditionally render components to our screen based on what's in the location bar. Where we can kind of set that up ourselves. And honestly, it's like React Router does a really good job of it. And the more deeper you get with it, the more impressive it is. But what we're going to do is we're going to set up React Router for use in our own application, and then we're going to show how to conditionally render routes based on what's in the location bar to link to other routes without causing a refresh, and and then also to dynamically route based on dynamic information. So let's jump in, and I want to get rid of that. No, I don't want that. First things first, what we need to do is, and I'm going to get rid of that just for the heck of it. I'm going to add a dependency in here. Remember, if you are doing this in Create React App on your VS Code, you're going to npm install save this or yarn add this. But right now I'm going to say React Router DOM. Okay, and there is a React Router without the DOM on it. But what the DOM does is it gives us the browser DOM version of it. There is a native version of it for use in React Native, and then there's also some other non-DOM related versions of it. We want React Router DOM. Okay, it means we're going to be routing on the DOM. Let's add that in. All right. Yeah, Benedict, we are pretending to go to different pages. Oh, no, I want to get rid of that too. We're not actually going to go to different pages. We're going to trick the browser. That's what we're going to do. All right. So the next thing we do is we are going to import something from React Router DOM. If I import it in these brackets, what kind of export is it on React Router DOM? It is a named export. And the name of this export is browser router. Okay. One thing I do want to clarify is Facebook did not create React Router. React Router was created by two guys. I believe it was just the two of them at first. They own a consulting firm called React Training, and they created it. So there have been a number of different solutions for this, but this is the one that's most popular. Yes. No worries. I just wanted to show that not like React itself was created by Facebook, Create React App was, but most of the stuff that we use with React, not created by Facebook. Okay. So remember 2 weeks ago when we talked about named exports, and I said there was a way to change the name. If this is too confusing for you at first, do not worry about it. But what you're going to see always, we're going to see browser router as router. And the reason behind this is because React Router went under a version change from 3 to 4, version 3 to version 4, and it was called router before. The component was called router. And then when it got changed, they renamed it to browser router because they had other routers in there. And so then this just became the standard. So you're going to see this pattern with React Router often. And now we just use router instead of browser router. If this is too much, by all means, don't do it. No, that doesn't do anything. Okay, there's nothing special about that other than renaming it. Okay. Can anyone tell me what this component? Never. It's a component. So what we are importing here is a component, a pre-made component from React Router DOM. And we can go look on our documentation, which I think that React Router has some of the best documentation out there, along with React. And when you're like, what's good documentation and what's bad, you'll see bad. Trust me. React Router is just good. So let's go look at our browser router. So our browser router, and we're not going to worry about the props that it takes, but let's just see that it wraps our app. Okay, so our browser router is what is known as a higher order component. It is going to wrap our application, and it is going to extend some functionality to our app. So that's just how we can see how to use it. Also, the quick start guide, I'll show you how to use it as well. We can just wrap whatever our top level is with the router here. So you'll see even they show you that pattern, browser router as router. So let's come in here. Let's take our router. This is a component, and we're going to wrap our app with it. This now does a couple of really cool things for us. Does anybody know what router here is going to do for us? Any ideas if you've watched the training kit videos? Allows us to link components as pages, intercepts HTTP requests. It doesn't, but you're absolutely on the right track, Benedict. Allows us to set our URL and link to other pages within our app for sure. Create paths. It allows us to bypass default behavior. Not necessarily in this case. This is still going to refresh the page. We'll actually have to do a little bit more work. So what it actually does, kind of crazy, is it takes control of our location and it creates a new history object, and it hijacks the history object within our browser. Okay, so it says, hey, browser history object, you no longer are the king around here. I am the king, and I'm going to hijack it. And it still exists, but within our app, we are using a fake history. And we're still using the same location, but kind of a fake location as well. It's really cool. Another thing that it does is that it passes down props. Let's go look at what these props are. And we'll get into these more later. But let's go console log. Oh no. It doesn't. Route does. Okay. It does give us access to them eventually. And actually, let me go look and see. Do I not have my, there we go, components. So now we have our router wrapping all of our route, wrapping our app. Okay, so our router, there it goes. Check this out. Creates its own location and its own history here. All right. So just keep that in mind. It does both of those things. It creates them both. You don't have to know this right now. This is not required knowledge, but I just want to show you how cool what's going on under the hood to our what actually is happening. All right. Now that we have our router set up, I'm going to get rid of this for now. I'm going to create a new component. I'm going to call this our home component, home.js. And I'm going to copy paste some code in. It's very basic React code. All it is a div, an image, and a button. Okay. So I'm going to create a little e-commerce store here called Dance Trinkets. All right. So I've got our home page here. So let's come into here, into our index, right? I'm going to get into that later. And let's say we want to bring in import home from components home. and we can create home. Ooh, that is not what I wanted it to look like. Let's see. Let me look at my notes. Yeah, that should be what it looks like within our app. Ah, that's not in our nav. There we go. Okay. There it is. Much better. Much, much better now. All right. It was in my nav and it didn't need to be in my nav. Okay. So now we have this home component. All right. This doesn't work. We'll get this to work. Maybe we'll hook this up today. Maybe we'll do it on Thursday. But we don't have our button working, but we have this here now. But let's check this out. Let's go to anywhere. Anywhere. I load it up and this home component still loads up. So what we want to do is we want to conditionally render this based on where we are in our location bar. All right. Can anybody tell me how we could do that? We could do it a number of different ways. Yeah, we could like go in and say window.location.path equals something. You know, we can say / and then we can say render home or null. We could do something like this. Oh, it didn't even, yeah, and it might work. It didn't work. I don't know what the actual path is here. But we can also use our router. And our router is going to conditionally render something based on the location path. Okay, so let's get rid of that. And let's bring in something called another component from React Router DOM called route. All right, this is a component now. We're going to use route. And route is going to take at least 2 props. Does anybody know what either of those props are? We can come in and look. Let's go look at our route component. So it'll take at least 1 prop. Path, okay? The path prop is what we're really after here. So let's go path. Does anybody know what the path prop supplies to route? Not quite. We actually have a component prop that we're going to supply the component to. But it supplies the path that we want to match to. Remember, before I was like window.location.path equals / that part right there is what we want. Well, we are telling route, hey, when the location bar path is this, then we want you to render this component. All right, so let's do it. Let's go path and let's go /. Remember, I want you all to know this, that / is the base, our root level, okay? This is our address. This is where our server lives. This is where what we're getting for our main React app. It's not always going to be like this, but wherever our root level of our app is. If I go to google.com, / is the root level. Okay, so path is going to be our root level here, and we're going to go based on that. Route takes another prop called component. And component is actually going to bring in the component we want to render it. Now, this is a tricky one, and you'll get used to this pretty quick, but we're not going to create a JSX component in here, okay? We are just going to pass the component that we imported in, all right? And now we're going to see that it works, okay? Now let's go see, maybe we want it to be on home. Now look, if we made our path home, we don't see anything on our base level. But if we change our path to home, now we see it's there. All right. So route is going to conditionally render a component, whatever component we give it, based on the path in the URL bar. All right. Any questions on that right now? See some typing, so I'm going to give it a moment. Any questions whatsoever? Or has it been so well explained that it's a little more complicated, but I want to make sure that we are all on the same page. Remember, we wrap our route or our app in the router, and this supplies our whole application with everything we need. Okay. We only do that one time. It's like React DOM render, right? We only do this one time. We're going to use many routes throughout our application. Yeah, so router is doing all of the behind the scenes work for us. We never, once we set up router here, we don't have to worry about it ever again. All right. I want you to keep that in mind. I showed you all that history and location stuff, and it's going to make sense in a little bit. But just so you have a deeper understanding of what's actually happening. But router is creating its own history, it's creating its own location, and it's supplying that to the app here. All right. Yep. And then our route is what we use to conditionally render a component based on what's in that location. So route is going to say, hey, router, what's the location? And the router is going to say, location is this. And it's going to say, route is going to say, oh, does that match the path that I have? In this case, sure does. So I'm going to render home to the screen. Okay. So this is just conditionally rendering based on the location bar. That's all route does. Nope, William, not with React Router DOM. You'll never need to use router any other place than on the top level component. Andrew, that's a great question. Does every component you need to render have to be an app? So are you saying does like every route have to be an app? The answer to that is no. We're not going to go into that tonight. It's a little bit too advanced for this intro. We are going to go into that on Thursday, and it's called nested routes. Okay. So yes, you can have routes in other components. We'll go into that on Thursday though. Great questions. Any other question right now? More information is at reacttraining.com/reactrouter. And let me just give you this address. This is your documentation. Always use your documentation to find the answers you need. If it's good docs, these are good docs. Vish, depends on what your needs are. If you, I would say that like more than 95% of all single page applications use a router, because we are used to changing pages and going through different things, right? We're used to this, clicking on links, clicking on navs, having page changes. That is what we're used to. So, yep. But I would say the vast majority of applications use a router. Okay, I'm going to create another component here, and I'm going to call this one items list.js. I am going to make sure I'm going to just actually write this one out with you. And I don't want that. So I'm going to import React from React. Yeah. Then I'm going to import items. So this is some data from our data. And I know we imported it in our home on our main page here, and we're not going to use that until Thursday. Okay, so don't worry about that right now, or that. So we're going to import these items from our data file. Let's look at our data file, and we can see that as it was last week, it is an array of objects. All right. Array of objects. So what I'm going to do is, how would I export default? One second, let me just write up our basic div. We are going to do this items list wrapper. Okay. So this is not technically considered a JSON file. This is not in JSON format. This is in JavaScript format. All right. It could be in JSON format if we did if everything was essentially wrapped in a string. It's not JSON format, but it looks like it. Yep. This is an actual JavaScript array of actual JavaScript objects. Okay. So each of these is an item that we are trying to sell. They're cool items too. Okay. So knowing what we know about React, how do I get those items to display on the screen? Yes, we'll use map. How do I use JavaScript in JSX? I get those C's and curlies, all right? So now I'm going to say we know what items is, right? What data type is items? We can see on our data that it is an array. Okay, it is an array, right? So let's go in here and we're going to say items.map, and map takes a callback as its one and only argument. And then in here, I am going to return, return. I'm going to return some JSX based on the item. Remember, map is going to go through that entire array and pass us back each of those objects into this. So we can create a component for each of those objects. And honestly, in a production app, I would be calling a new component. I would be calling an item component here. But I'm just going to create it in line right here. So I'm going to say div class name is item card. Remember, we have to give everything a key if we map over something. So in this case, let's go look. What is something unique that we know is always going to be unique on each of these items? One of these fields. Yeah, we can almost guarantee that an ID field is going to be unique. Like I said, for the most part, this is going to come from a server, and the server creates the ID, so the server knows where that item is within its database. So we know that that ID key is probably going to be unique. So we can just pass that in for our key here, item.id. And we should start to see it form on the screen a little bit. Oh no, we haven't even done anything yet. Okay. Okay, and then I'm going to come in here and I'm going to create a couple of more. And I'm actually going to just go boop, copy this. Okay, so this is just going to create the image. Let's create a price. And let's make a name on it. All right, so this is just gonna, for each item, it is going to create a new div That's going to give us the image. We have the image URL. And this isn't really what we're concerned about today, but just wanted to walk you through it just as practice. All right, we have an image URL, where that image is. So that's our source. We have an alt, which is going to yell at us if we don't put an alt. And that's always good practice to have an alt on there anyways for accessibility issues and reasons. So we're going to have our name, and then we'll give it a price and a name. All right. We've got our items list. Let's go back to our app, and let's go import items list from components / items list. All right, let's just make sure that it appears. Items list. And it looks like our items list is working. Beautiful. Okay. Let's do a route for this. Remember, we need a path, and we want our component to be items list. And I'm going to try to close that as much as possible. Okay. There we go. I don't want to give it away here. What should our path be? Any path. Doesn't matter to me. You can name it. Benedict, that key is for internal use only. We will never use that. Shop. All right, William, you got it. You were up there first. We're going to go shop. Okay. So we now see that we are on, what is it? Blue. Oh, I don't know why it's blue. It should be blue. But we are on our, what is our route currently? What is our path currently that we're on? We are currently on /. Remember that / is the home route, right? We can see, and we see that our home component is routed here. So I'm going to go to shop. Quick poll. One second. Multiple choice. That's all we need. All right. When I go to shop, what components are going to appear on the screen? This is anonymous. I would love to see it. What do you think is going to happen here? We're going to have items list only, right? We're going to / shop. Are we going to have home? Are we going to have both of them? Nobody's saying home only. We got about a 66% saying item list and home, 33% saying items list only. Let's go check it out. We are getting both. Why are we getting both? Why are both of those appeared? We're at / shop. But why? What's the exact path and why do I need to use it? So we got to think about this in a kind of a abstract way. If the path that we are looking for is included in the path that is is in the location bar, right? / shop includes /. then it is going to make that appear as well. Okay. If we want to say only render when the location is exactly this, when it matches, when it triple equals this, rather than is this a part of the URL, then we have to use a prop called the exact prop. So exact says, don't render this component unless this is exact. So now we see we have /shop and we don't have the home component. Oh. We take exact off and we do have the home component. Okay. Yes. So we need to make sure that if we are going to use something, we're going to have nested, we're going to have these nested URLs all the time, these paths all the time. Okay. We need to make sure that we are using exact when we don't want something to appear later on down the line. Once again, what does this mean? What is this shorthand for? It's vintage, Thomas. Remember that when we just include a single word as a prop in React, what we mean is this. Just keep that in mind. What is exact default to without it on there? Defaults to false. So when we don't have it, we have exact false. And when we do have it, we have exact true. So we want it to be true in this case. Are there any questions right now about this? Questions about the exact prop? Questions about our path or our component or our URL bar up here? Let me also show you that we're not quite there yet, right? If I go to, oh, I don't want to go home. I want to go to our actual home. I could make this an anchor tag, but when I go to shop, if I click enter in my URL bar, we're still going to re-download everything. We're getting there. We're rendering based on our location bar up here, but we're not quite there yet. Is it possible to have two routes with exact that have the same path? Yep. No, it'll show both. Yeah, you can have two. And then if I go to home, it'll show both. Okay. Remember, I want you to think about this route here as only as a conditional rendering agent. Okay, that's all it does, is it conditionally renders based on the location bar. All right, so if you have multiple things here, it's just like putting multiple if statements. They can both happen. It's not an if else statement, it's just multiple if statements. So, yeah. You can have as many routes as you want. Remember that they're just conditionally rendering agents. That's all we got to think about them as. All right. I'm going to create one more component. And then we'll break. Oop. And then we'll get into some heavy stuff. Item. We want a single item. Okay. Actually, I'm going to wait on this. What we're going to do next, sorry, switch gears a little bit, is our A tag here. So we want to go shop. Let's just do this. We have an anchor tag and we want it to go to the shop URL. And when we get to the shop URL, our route component here is going to load the items list. It will not load the home because there is an exact path. If I click on this, will that happen? This is a trick question. Will it happen? Will items list load up on my page and home disappear if I click on this anchor tag up here? Yes or no? $50-50 right now. That's cheating, Blake. You gotta stick to your guns. Get one side. It worked. It did work. Look. Oh, it should say shop up there. It will in here. Let me actually go. I'm going to click it right now. Oh, it didn't change it up there. That's so strange. Well, I know why, but no. It should have changed it up there, but it did work. What didn't it do? What did it do that we didn't want it to do? So all of our conditional rendering agent is working now, right? We got it to get the right component to appear. We got the wrong component to disappear. Yeah, it reloaded our whole page. I'm going to click on this again, and we're even on that page, and we're still getting a full reload from it. Okay. So in comes our final component. I believe our final component. Yeah, our final component of the night, tonight, and that is the, where is it at? Link component. So link is actually going to create an anchor tag. Okay. It's going to take, the link component is really easy to use. I love it. It is going to take where we want to link something to. It's going to take some text about what we want the link to say. Under the hood, it is going to create an anchor tag, but it is going to hijack the functionality of that anchor tag. And it is going to say, do not reload the page. Only make it look like we've changed things. Make it look like the location bar has changed. Make it look like we're reloading things, but don't actually reload it. All right. So let's come in here. We get link from the same places we got browser, router, and route. This is a component. How can we tell it's a component? What's an easy way to tell that it's a component? Yeah, it's capital letter, right? What you have with shop is an anchor tag, so it reloads. Yes, that's correct. So where we had our anchor tag, we're going to now say link instead. And where we had href, we are going to say to. We're going to say we want to link to somewhere. All right. So I'm actually going to come to our page over here. Let's go to our main page. We're going to load it all one time. Everything's loaded up. Okay. When I click on shop, let's see what happens. Look at that. It changed our page. It changed it in the location bar. And the only thing it downloaded were the new assets we needed, which were those images. All right. So it completely took over. It didn't reload. Also, look how fast that is. Look how long it takes to load this up. Let's time this. All right. Say it's taken us almost 3 seconds to load this page up. So that's downloading everything. Remember, click on shop. It didn't even, we also have these cached, so it didn't take any time. Let's come back in here. Let's change these back to anchor tags. I'm going to save it. let's look at the performance difference in something as simple as just loading up a bunch of images. Okay. Click on shop now. And it took us another 3 seconds plus, about 3 seconds, 2.38, plus there was some other stuff going on to reload the page. All right. Come back in here. Oh, gotta do this again. Link to link, save it. Let's get rid of that. Let's actually go to our main page. .17 seconds. And now look how fast this is. Instantaneous. Okay. So that's the main upside to having a single page application. Once you're in it, it is lightning fast. That's why we call it an application. It was originally created, this idea was to have it mimic a desktop application. Whereas a desktop application, you download the entire application, right? And then once you're in it, it's fast. You move around the app very quickly, and it's fast. It's seamless. All right, and so that's what was intended when spas were originally created. Was it wanted to feel like you were in a desktop application. All right. So yeah, exactly. The whole app idea. That's why we call it apps, right? They're web-based applications. It's meant to be this seamless, fast feeling of a desktop app or a mobile app. Something that you've already downloaded ahead of time, rather than waiting for a page to load. Cool. Let's take a break. When we come back, we're going to learn about dynamic routing. It's a little tricky, but this is one of those things tonight where it's going to be really good to work on that quite a bit. All right, let's 5, and I'll see you in 5. If you have any questions, throw them in Slack. All right, come on back. Let's get to the really powerful part of this stuff right now. Um, like I said, some of this is going to be a little confusing at first. So I want you to take this really slow. I don't want you to feel intimidated if you're like, I don't understand this when you first see me do it. You're going to be working with this, and it really makes all of this so powerful. In the ability to conditionally render based on like a couple of different things here. All right, so don't let me scare you. It just understand that if you are confused at first, that's totally normal. Okay, so I've got this shop, and I want to create. Oh, that's why my nav isn't looking right. 1 second, sorry. There we go. And I'm going to create another one in here. I'm going to create this one as home so we can flip back and forth. Home. All right, and let's go look at our app here. Okay, beautiful part about having this shop, home, amazingness. We can just flip back and forth super fast. Okay, so in our shop, I want it to be that when I click on one of these items, that it takes me to a page based on that specific item. So let's start to break this down a little bit. What would we need to have in here? We're going to create an item component. So I'm going to start on that. And we're just going to return a div right now. Div, and we're going to call this, 1 second. Call this item wrapper. Class name is item wrapper. And let's create a bunch of our basic HTML for this, or JSX, excuse me. Yeah, we're gonna have another path for sure. But let me just come in here. Let me create an item wrapper, image wrapper. Let's go div. Div. And let's leave it at that for now. Right now, I'm going to just bring in some data. So don't worry about this kind of setup here we're going to do. And then I want to say const item equals items 0. I'm just going to use the first one just so we can see something appear on the screen. All right. And then I'm going to copy paste the rest of my code and we can walk through it. Very simple, basic stuff. Basic React stuff here. All right. So essentially I'm just creating a bunch of divs, which not semantic, but it works for us right now. That item, right, it's going to be the first item in our list. If we go to our data, it's going to be this reel that, why can't I think of it what they're called right now? Why can't I, whatever it is, throw it into Slack. I can't think of what it's called. Yeah, ViewMaster, thank you. We're going to take this, we're going to use this as our basic item. Once. Had to let the dog out. Apologies. Okay, so we're going to use this as our basic item, this first one. We're going to get our image on there. We're going to get the name, price, and the description, which we aren't using on this page. All right, so let's now come over to our page here. And what I want to do is I want to create a new route. And the path, I want it to continue to be shop. And then let's just do, and let's just call shop /shop /item here. I'm just setting us up for a little showcase here. This isn't item. Okay. So if we scroll all the way to the bottom, we should see that ViewMaster appear. Oh no. Oh yeah. Shop /item. Let's enter there. Now we see our ViewMaster down here. Doesn't look great, but we see that component. Notice we have both our items list component and our item down here. Why is that? Yeah, because shop is still in our location bar here, right? So in this case, we want to do exact again. Now you're probably thinking like, is there a case we ever don't want to do exact? Yes, there is plenty of places, but this, we don't need to do it on this, right? Shop /item. If we don't need it, we don't need to put it on there, okay? So now we only have that item. All right, so this works for a single item, but what we want to link to each individual item, right? If I make a link to shop /item now, we're going to get this real viewer every single time. So how do I begin to make this path up here dynamic? I want to make it so that it's a different item every single time. We could use state and pass it down. A switch statement we could do as well. There's a very common pattern that is used in routing throughout any kind of web-based routing solutions, and it's the pattern of what's known as a param. And so in our route here, we want to essentially create a variable. We want to create a variable that could represent anything. Okay, so in this case, let's call this. We're gonna call this, instead of item, we're gonna call it ID, or I can call it item ID if I want. I can call it anything I want. And to make it so that it's a parameter and not a static, right? This is a static item up here, ID. I want to make it so I can put in anything, and it will. We'll see how we access it down the line. We do that by using a colon. Okay, we say colon, and we name it something. This is essentially creating a location bar variable. All right. So now our ID is going to be ID. Our ID in this case is going to be 7. We still get this, right? Because it's going to be loading up that item every time. But now we have something that is a variable. Notice that it's not rendering because I don't have ID in there. I can name it, I can call it whatever I want, okay? And it's going to render to our screen. So we have essentially created what's known as a param, or we can think of it as a location bar variable. All right, now's where the cool stuff comes into play. I'm gonna do that, get rid of that. I'm gonna keep that up. I'm gonna get rid of our item list for now. Let's come into our item and let's find out what props are being passed down to item right now that you can see. That's a question for all of you. In a way, you're right. ID is being passed down. But we kind of aren't explicitly passing any props to item right? Route is just rendering that if it sees the right URL, okay? So all of that data that you're all talking about, price, title, image, all that, that's coming from our data here. All right, that's not coming from our props. Right, we're not using props dot anything in here. In fact, that's why it's grayed out. But let's go look at what props we are getting, because this is cool stuff. So we are getting that fake history, remember, that I told you about at the beginning of class, that React router is creating. We are getting that fake location bar. All right, look at that. Look at that path name there. What? Look at this. I want to show you this. I have shop/ID. Why is it saying shop/Dan? It's telling us what's actually in there. And then for these two things we'll use more on Thursday. But for right now, we're worried about this match. Match object gives us the cool stuff. All right. It gives us the path that was put in the route here. Also, by the way, all of these props are being passed by the route component to the component that we're rendering. It's doing that for us automatically behind the scenes. But let's look. We have the path that we've asked it for. That's why we see that :/ID. We have the actual path that we've received. And then if we go one level deeper into our params, we now have access to this ID, right? And whatever it is in here. Let's do this once more. Let's go 10. Match. Params, ID is now 10. Let's do 7. We're going to have it as a number right now. To be quite honest, Benedict, not sure. I could venture to guess what it means. It means matching up the parameters to the location bar, but I don't know why they named it that. It is just named that. There's probably a description on the let's go look. Route match. Route props. Match. Match object contains information matched the URL. Yep. How a route matched the URL. So how it got to that. All right. Yes. Okay. So now we see that we have access to that ID now. Let's come into our, I'm going to get that a little lower. Let's go that a little higher. Let's come into our item. And now let's just, instead of props, we're going to say props.match.params. Remember that it was match.params. We can see that now. And then we can say .id. Now, remember, we could have called this anything we wanted to. And you'll have some that are like 3 layers deep. We could have called this item ID if we wanted to. Okay. But we called it ID. All right. So we have access to that ID now. Look at that. Let's go. We're going to do numbers right now, but it could be anything. I could write Dan in there again if I wanted to. We want to make it only numbers, though, for the moment, because we want to match it to the ID of the individual item in our items list. All right. So now we have access to our ID up there. Anyone know a good array method for getting a single item out of an array based on a piece of data? There's a couple. Map's probably not the best use case here. Reduce would work, but it seems a little overkill. Find is essentially what I'm thinking. Filter would work too, but filter returns an array, and we don't really care about that. We only want the item. So let's go find. Find. And find works like all of our other. If you're not familiar with find, that's totally okay. It works just like anything else, but it says if this item matches whatever this conditional statement is, then return the first item that matches that. So we can say return item.id equals props.match.params.id. And we're going to get an error here. So does anybody know why we got an error? Why item hasn't been found? This is kind of a tricky thing that you have to know about match and params. Yeah. So this might trip you up, and this might be one of those things that like trips you up for like 3 hours in the future, and you're like, why isn't this working? I see a number 1 right here, and I know that there's a ID of 1 in here. Why isn't it working? Well, what you don't see here is that this, what we see here is a string, okay? And this is a number. So we are saying triple equals, and it's saying, hey, that string does not match that number by any means. So no items found. And you have to always remember that a param is going to be a string no matter what. So you can do a number of different things. We could say number, and it would work. Can't read item ID of undefined. What? It's dot ID? Dot ID. Yes. Item. Oh, yeah. Let's call this my brain is like going blank right now. I can always call it item, but I'm calling this item. So now it's saying that that's just the naming clash right there. Let's call this product. Okay. What? All right, this is can't read property undefined or undefined. So let's console log this. Console log product. While I do that, undefined. Let me look at my notes here. Item, find thing. Yeah, that should. No, I don't have to do a const on this. Why is that coming undefined? Let's go console log dot items. All undefined. I am very confused as to why this is not loading up properly. It's loading up eventually. Hold on 1 second. This seems to be a strange. Let's go there. No, it should load up. I'm not sure why it is not loading up automatically. No, yeah. I mean, this is what happens in life, in developing. Why isn't that loading up? Why do I have a race condition there, where I'm loading up both of them now? Okay, let's come into here. That should be fine. 1. Okay, this probably has something to do with, I don't know. I'd have to look deeper into it. Okay, but it is loading up now, right? 2. All right, 3. So now we can see that we are taking whatever is in this parameter here. We've called it ID. And we are comparing it to the IDs in here. What we should do is create some sort of error handling that says, if item doesn't exist, then redirect to the store or something like that. We'll cover that stuff on Thursday. For right now, it is working the way we intended it to work. All right. Any questions right now on the props.match.params? This is something that we are going to use is something that makes React Router very powerful. And the ability to dynamically route based on something in our address bar here. So once again, we give the param by calling it with a colon and then the name of the param. Whatever we want to name it, that's how we name it, okay? The colon and the name right in our route path, all right? In the component, route gives us 3 props. One of those props being match, all right? So I could destructure that just to get match and params out. Match contains the URL that we supplied for the path. It contains the actual URL, and then it contains all of our parameters, known as the params. We can have multiples in there. That's fine, but we're not worried about multiples right now. All we're worried about now is getting a single param into this component. We know that params are always, the values of a param is always going to be a string. So if we are trying to compare it to a number, we need to change one of those, either to string or number, or to parse int, or a number of different ways we can get one to the other. Or we could have used double equals there, but don't use double equals. So we are then finding the item based on that parameter and rendering that item to the page. Like I said, if you're confused right now, that's normal. That's fine. Working with the params and understanding them a little bit at a time will help go a long way. One thing that we also need to do is we need to create a link from our shop to each item. All right. So our item page is done. I'm gonna get rid of that. Our data is sort of done. Let's go to our items list. Now, how do I create a link, let's say from any of these items in here dynamically to that other page? What's the first thing I should do if I'm going to create a link? Yeah, let's get that link component, right? Where do I get that link component from? React Router, done. Okay. We're going to get that link component here, and we could wrap the whole thing with it. That's fine. Link, and we're going to say to, and we'll give it a moment. And it's going to yell at us because we don't have a link to. So what are we going to link this to? What's the first part of that URL we're going to link it to? Yeah, we essentially, when we click on this, we want it to go to this, right? I'm going to copy paste that in, but let's think about this for a moment. This link, if I go to this, our URL is going to, this is going to be exact. This is exactly what's going to put in there. Okay, so if I go boom, then we'll see that we get that parameter in there. When we think about this link, we want to think about the actual item that it's doing, right? Just like we did use item.image URL, item.name. What can we do to put that dynamic item into our URL? Yeah, we can do item.id. And in order to do that, we got to use backticks. And we got to use earlies because it's JavaScript. And now we can say item.id. Benedict, I wrapped the whole thing in the link to make it all clickable, but you could do whatever if you wanted to do it on the price or the name, etc. All right, let's go check it out. And actually, let's come to our big app here. Let's refresh this. Let's look at how. So when I click on Yoga Joe's here, that link is going to have the path /shop/whatever the ID of Yoga Joe's is. And we can see that it's 3. The item component got that 3, and it said, let me find the item in that array with the ID of 3, and it display that on the page. And now our app is routing and working, and look at all of these network calls. Nowhere to be found. Beautiful single page application rendering. All in the client. This is also known as client-side rendering. All right. Yeah, I can click anywhere in here. If I did link on any of like the name or anything, you can only click on the name. So we have now built an application that allows us to go through. Oh, one thing. Does the back button work? Does anyone know? Does the back button work? It does. I don't know why it didn't work right there. The back button's supposed to work. It should work. Huh, that's interesting. We'll figure that out next time. The back button should work. The React router does take over the back button as well. I don't know why it wasn't working right there. But so we have now, sorry for going a little bit over, but we have now created 3 routes. So now we have 3 conditionally rendered components based on whatever's in the location bar. All right. We have created links to hijack the default functionality of our anchor tag to navigate to any place in our app we'd like to go. We learned about the exact prop and how the path actually works. And then we learned about params too. And this is one of the trickiest parts about React Router. So like I said, don't worry if you're a little confused on how it exactly works right now. But we've named our param ID. So whenever we go to shop/anything, that's going to be our ID. And in item, we take that ID, we find the item that it correlates to, and then we display that item on the page. All right. So now we can go and see deeper the Shakespearean insults chart or the dinosaur taco holders, which I really want to buy these. So that's it. That is your introduction to React Router tonight. I hope that it's as clear as it can be. This is one of those things, especially with the params and the match, that you're going to have to work with a lot. Remember, use a bunch of console logs just to find out what your props are. Remember that route is passing you 3 props when you do it in this way. It's passing you the history, the location, and the match prop. All right. Important to know all 3, but right now important really to know the match. Okay. And yeah, we're getting some default props in there. And now we're learning to use our first library and learning to create a real single page application now. Yeah, sorry if I didn't share it with you earlier. There you go. And that's what I've got for you tonight. Starting to get dark out. Have a good night, everyone. And I will talk to you on Thursday. See you later.